My wife is holding up, but she's a lot of stress. She's lost weight. You know, she's not eating right. She's not sleeping. The kids are every day, where's daddy? When is he coming home? I coach my son's Little League football team. You know, I graduated from the Carpenters Joint Apprenticeship Program. I'm a union carpenter, journeyman carpenter. Built multiple homes. The home we live in now is the first home I built by myself. Me and a couple buddies, we built that house by myself. And since then, I built numerous homes, rehab homes. You know, I serve at church, operate the cameras at church, and, you know, just have fun with my family. You know, just live a normal life.
That is Cornelius Anderson. He is in jail right now. He was convicted of armed robbery in 1999, but they forgot to send him to jail. As he was getting ready to be released, that's when the authorities realized they never really had him in jail. They arrested him. He's now in jail, and he spoke with Fox 2's Elliot Davis, who joins us here in studio or here on the phone. Good morning, Elliot Davis.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
All right, first, let's get to this. When is this? You talked to him exclusively. This is a big coup for you. When is this going to air on Fox 2?
Yeah, it's going to air tonight at 9 o'clock. I'm the first local television reporter to sit down and talk to him and interview with him. He's had some national attention, but not a lot in terms of TV-wise locally. So
all right.
He agreed to talk to me.
Okay. What did he do back in 1999 that got him sentenced to 13 years in jail?
Well, he was part of a group of four young men. Basically, they took money from a worker making a night deposit in St. Charles, and that kind of launched this whole thing. He was not the actual person with a weapon or anything, but he was in that group, and then he got sentenced in 2000 to 13 years in prison.
And why did he never serve the time? Did he never turn himself in? Did they never go and get him? How was that supposed to work?
Well, what happened was when he was initially sentenced, they appealed. He was out on bond. And he lost both appeals, and he said he had talked to his lawyer and said, well, what happens now? What am I supposed to do? His lawyer said, well, just sit tight. They'll contact you and tell you when to turn yourself in, but that call never came.
And he ended up getting married, not once, but twice. He started a business, paid taxes, and no one ever came for him, right?
Well, absolutely. It really is an amazing story. I haven't heard of anything like this in my long career. So nobody calls him, right? So he's thinking, well, you know, and you go through 13 years, you're thinking, any day they're going to come and get me. And so he goes about his life in a sense. It's almost like The Fugitive. Remember that old movie, The Fugitive?
Sure, yeah.
So he would say that he told me that, for example, there would be he'd get stopped sometimes for minor traffic infractions, you know, running a red light or something like that. Officers say, give me your license, right? and he said, you know, my heart would start to race because I think any moment I'm going to get taken back to jail, but the officer would just give his license back. So it was apparently the system, you know, and someone's going to have to go back and examine this whole system to see exactly what happened, but it didn't have him as wanted or anything. So while he was out for 13 years, yeah, he had a wife, he has 4 kids, he coached Little League, you know, he started 2 businesses. He built it, as you heard the clip, he built his home in Webster Groves. And what he told me is that his feeling was that every day he was out gave an opportunity to show he wasn't the person that he was in 2000. So he's saying that, look, I turned my life around. Prison is supposed to, one, be punishment, but more than that, rehabilitation. The state spends millions of dollars in mostly failed efforts to rehabilitate inmates. He managed to rehabilitate himself. And so he's saying, look, this ought to carry some weight. They should let me out of jail.
He's currently in jail right now.
Yeah, he is currently in Southeast Correctional Center. That's in Charleston. That's about 150 miles southeast of St. Louis. So it's a hike. He's kept in a 2-man cell at the maximum security institution. He says he's in his cell 21 hours a day.
He's been there how long now?
He's been there since July of last year. So what happened is that it's bizarre the way the state finally realized its mistake. You, of course, will hear about that tonight on Fox News at 9 o'clock. How about that for a tease?
Yeah, but you know what, Elliot Davis? For the last 12 years, no one's paid for it.
Well, but we don't know. Here's the deal. His lawyer contends that because he was on the rolls of prisons, that the corrections department got state funding for him. Because the state counts an inmate and says, how many inmates do we have? 5. Okay, each one of them, it's $30,000 a year, right? And so his lawyer contends that taxpayers were paying for it for the last 13 years, even though he wasn't there. And another point is that's the more direct point. And another point is that look how much money taxpayers pay through the Department of Corrections to keep track of inmates, security, surveillance, all this stuff. The job, house inmates, house offenders, keep track of them. What happened? How did the system break down? What went wrong?
Well, and
either way, there's a ton of taxpayers' money involved, but just as important, there is a life of a individual and his family and his kids at stake in this debate.
And how much money did he pay in taxes over the last 13 years? If he's started a couple businesses and built a house and has a family, he's paid quite a bit in taxes.
Absolutely. And there's no evidence that he's gotten in any trouble over this past 13 years. The evidence points to that he was a tax-paying citizen, he and his wife and his family, so he's paying into taxes, and he's saying, well, what are you going to do now? You're going to throw me in prison for 13 years and have taxpayers pay again for another 13 years for me to be in prison? But he, like I said, he is remaining hopeful. Obviously, it's a dramatic situation to be at home and then have marshals banging at your door saying, give yourself up. And 1 minute you're at home with your wife and kid, holding your kid, and the next moment you're sitting in a prison cell. And so he is saying basically it's a nightmare. I mean, and I can understand how that would be.
Whose call is it? Is it Nixon's call? Is it the prosecutor's call? Is it Chris Koster's call? Whose call is it to get him out of jail?
Well, it's going to be ultimately it's going to be a judge's call. There have been some recent documents filed in Mississippi County courts. Basically, they're trying to commute it to time. Nixon floated the idea of having that maybe a judge can give him credit for the 13 years he's been out, but can give him credit for jail time as if he's served that time in jail, give him credit for time served.
Right.
But the Nixon twist, though, would turn it over, was that we're going to give him credit for time served, which would make him eligible for probation. And then that would kick it in the hands of probation and parole board, and they would decide what happens to him. Well, what if somebody on the board says, well, he should do some time, so we're going to give him 5 years anyway. So that's an uncertainty, and his lawyer, obviously, that's gotten a lukewarm reception from Anderson's lawyer, Patrick Madero, who says, we want him to be released now. So basically, at the end of the day, a judge will make the call as to whether he gets out of jail right now or not.
Elliot Davis, you've done it again. Our mouths are watering. Tonight on Fox, what time?
9 o'clock on Fox 2 News at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock on Channel 2. Boy, I don't know if you paid for this one or not, but you got it. So, Elliot,
we paid for it. and more importantly, Anderson and his family, they're paying for it every day.
Yeah.
And state taxpayers are paying for it. So it's a big cost.
A great story, Elliot Davis. Thanks for checking in, and thanks for sharing.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. Elliot Davis tonight, Fox 2 News, Channel 9. Unbelievable story. And he's got Cornelius Anderson talking about it. Jailhouse interview.
That is something else.
That's
really
one for the books. Ted Drewes is